right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the CounterSketch webinar. My name is Heather Kutzman, and I'm the Gemvision Tech Support and Training Director. And joining and assisting on the call is Allie, who's one of our solutions specialists at Gemvision. So she's going to be helping me to answer any questions that may come in over the course of the webinar. And you may even receive a follow-up call from her after the webinar if you have specific questions and you're in her district or area. So welcome. We're so glad that you're able to join us this morning. As I mentioned, this is a CounterSketch webinar, and this morning we are going to be talking about quite a few topics related to CounterSketch. We are recording the webinar, so if you have team members who were interested in this content that weren't able to join when the scheduled time, I guess, was set, we will have a recording that you can access. I think typically we post that recording on YouTube, so you can check it out at a later date and time. And this morning, the focus of our webinar is going to be around the recent updates that were added to CounterSketch. So as some of you may already know, if you are CounterSketch owners or if you've considered the product in the past, CounterSketch is a tool that really allows you to create an experience in your store for your customer. So if you guys have questions as we're going through the webinar, please feel free to submit those questions via the chat or the question and answer box. And like I said, Allie or myself will get back to you with a response. CounterSketch is intended to kind of help build relationships with your customers and also to offer an experience with them when they're coming into your store. We know that in the current times that we're in, often building relationships can be challenging. And so we really think that CounterSketch has the opportunity and gives you the tools necessary to help build those relationships with your customer. By allowing you to provide a design experience right on your sales floor, you're going to get the opportunity to truly communicate with your customer. So you're going to be having kind of a back and forth conversation and working collaboratively to design and create the piece of jewelry that they are looking to purchase. In addition, you're going to be able to show your customer respect. Obviously, if you're collaborating on anything to work well together, you're going to need to have a common amount of respect for each other. So not only are you going to be able to show your customer respect by listening to what they have to say and integrating their ideas for the design into the piece, but they're also going to learn to respect you and the depth of jewelry knowledge that you bring to the program so that you're able to make recommendations about the design that will help with the long-term wearability of the piece. Also, it's going to help build trust. I don't know if you've ever worked with anyone on a project before, but typically after that project, you have a renewed level of not only respect, but also trust when you're working with that person. You're kind of used to the way that they work and you understand them a lot better. So we find that any type of shared experiences, like designing a piece of jewelry, can help to start to build trust. And finally, it's going to point out commonalities that you and your customer have. So things that maybe you share in common that you didn't realize, or shared experience that you now have of creating a design together. So again, CounterSketch is all about giving you an opportunity to create an experience for your customers, and it gives you opportunities to build these tenets of a relationship that maybe wouldn't be possible if you were doing a traditional sale of something directly out of your showcase. Not to say that you couldn't create these in that scenario, but we believe that CounterSketch gives you a much better opportunity because of the back and forth and the interaction that the software provides. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to cover on today's webinar. In the webinar, we're going to look at the newest features that have been added to CounterSketch. We've got quite a list that you'll see on the next slide. And kind of in talking about these new features, we're going to work through a Pinterest to price example. So new features are wonderful. We love them. They're always incredibly helpful. However, sometimes if the feature doesn't really impact you or your customer's experience, it may not be that valuable. And so what I would like to do on the webinar today is really talk about how these new features are going to impact the level of service and the type of an experience you're able to provide for your customer. So the way that we're going to do that is by walking through a Pinterest to price example where we say that a customer brings in maybe or gives you access or shows you a Pinterest board, and then what you can do from that point is kind of build out the design in CounterSketch. So we're going to look at that Pinterest board, create something similar using CounterSketch, and in the process, I'm going to highlight some of these new features that we've added to the software. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish today in our hour together. As I mentioned, there are quite a lot of new features that have been added. We actually updated the entire user interface. So we have a graphic designer on our development team who we worked with very closely to kind of go in, refresh the look of CounterSketch, and make it much more user-friendly whenever you're working in the software. So we'll take a look at that. As part of that updated user interface, we also made some updates to our order screen so that placing your order will happen more quickly and much easier. And we've also made some changes to our curated collection screen. So if you've been following along with us, we actually sent out an update back in March of 2020 that added a new feature called curated collections. The curated collections really take advantage and kind of highlight the fact of those commonalities that you share with your customer. With curated collections, you have the ability to build your own collections of design from the existing CounterSketch library and then present those on your start screen using whatever graphic you'd like. So if you'd like to have your logo on the screen, you can definitely do that to, again, draw attention to designs that you have hand selected that you feel like are most relevant for your customer base. So they're easy and kind of quick to locate right there on your home screen. So we did update both of those screens, and I'll walk us through how to create a curated collection in just a moment. In addition to the updated user face, we've also added lab-grown diamonds to CounterSketch. So if your customer is interested in purchasing a lab-grown diamond, they can now do that through the CounterSketch interface rather than having to kind of bounce around to Stuller.com and then back into CounterSketch. You can offer those lab-grown diamonds right within the software and at the same retail markups that you would show in Stuller Showcase if you were doing the same thing. So we really try to create a really cohesive experience so that the customer can see the information that they need right within the software. We also have the ability to do render previews now. And it's really kind of a cool tool with render previews. If you've ever rendered or seen a render in CounterSketch before, sometimes it can take quite a few minutes to get a render completed. And so with these render previews, you can see what that render is going to look like before you take the time to actually go through the process of creating it. So that can be helpful as well. In addition, we also have added the ability to create standard sized renders that are compatible with the social media platforms. So if there is a specific piece, like say, I don't know, that you're trying to advertise on either your Pinterest board or your Facebook page or really any of your social media platforms, we've added standard render sizes to the software so that you can do that much more quickly. So again, these are the new features that we're going to talk about. I'm going to quickly hop over into CounterSketch and show you the updated user interface and the curated collections, because typically that's something that you would do before the customer comes into the store. And then we'll walk through our Pinterest to price example, looking at some of these lab-grown diamonds, the render previews, and the standard render sizes that you can choose. So from here, I'm going to hop over into CounterSketch, and this is our new updated interface. So you can see that we have really changed the color palette of the overall look of the screen. We have also updated all of the render images on this page so that they have kind of a new and updated look, a little bit more colorful maybe. And we've also added in our lab-grown diamonds here that you can see. In March, we added our gemstones as well. So regardless of whether your customer is looking to start by selecting a center stone and then work through the mounting, or start with a mounting and then select a center stone, you can do either way in CounterSketch. As I was mentioning, we're going to walk through the process now of setting up a curated collection because, again, I think these curated collections help to really showcase the fact that you know your market well and you have a good idea of what your customers are looking for. So to start, we're going to create a curated collection by going into our ring designs. So I'm just going to left click on all ring designs. And then I'm going to select a group of styles that I would like to showcase in my curated collection. If you want to think about it from traditional jewelry terms, this is where you would be kind of merchandising a collection for, say, a showcase. Within this collection, maybe I really want to highlight cluster set halos. So I'm going to left click on cluster from my design element filters, and then I'm going to left click on OK. You'll notice that it's going to update my results from the close to 1,300 designs that we currently have in the library and limit it to only those designs that show clusters. So we were really able to kind of find a smaller group that's relevant for what we're looking to create in our collection. Now that I've isolated the designs that have clusters, I can start to go through and left click on the styles that I would like to add to my curated collection. So you'll notice in this lower left corner, as I hover over these different designs, there's going to be a little checkbox that appears. So I'm just going to go through and left click to select a few of these cluster designs that I think are most relevant for my market. And we've got quite a few to choose from. So that's the whole point of a curated collection, is kind of, limiting those results so we can click through and find the ones that are most like what our customers have typically looked or sought to purchase. And you can see once I do that, I've kind of got this running list of what we call session picks down here at the bottom. I've selected 10 designs, and now I can see those 10 designs side by side in my session picks down here at the bottom of my screen. If there are any of these that I feel like don't really fit well with the overall collection that I'm looking to create, all I have to do is left click on that little X and it will remove that style from my collection. And then I'll have only 9 designs in this group. This looks like a good place to start. So this is the first collection that I'm going to create. I'm going to left click on Add Marked Designs to Portfolio. And when I add those marked designs to my portfolio, I'm going to come up here to my Design Manager. And here you can see it's got all of those designs there in my portfolio. Oops, I saved some extra ones. Let me go in and delete these. Those were ones that I had from a previous lesson that I was doing. So we've got all these designs, and I'm just going to rename this particular portfolio and call it Clusters 2020. So now we've renamed that portfolio to Clusters 2020, and we have all of these designs that we've selected in that collection. So now that we've created our collection, we need to go back to our home screen, and we're going to create a tile on our home screen that will link directly to that collection. So to do that, I can go about it 2 different ways. You'll notice in the lower left here, I have a little settings gear. It's really small, so you may not be able to see it on your screen. Or I can left click on my start menu in the upper left, look under preferences, and choose to customize my start screen. either one will take me to this interface where I can add a curated collection. If you'll notice at the bottom, we have our tray of options that we can choose from, and I'm going to left click on Add a New Custom Tile. So this will add a new tile out onto my screen. And the first thing I want to do is link to that collection that we just created. So in the kind of upper right corner in the middle, there's what looks like two links. So we're going to left click on that link, and it asks us what we want to link this tile to. We've got quite a few options that we can choose from. And in this particular instance, we want to link to a CounterSketch portfolio. So we've already created our collection, and I'm just going to choose from my drop-down box that, what did we call it? Clusters 2020 that we just created, and use that as my piece. So here we go, Clusters 2020. And I can rename this if I want to. So maybe instead of clusters, I'm going to name it Summer 2020, and that'll be the name of the collection or the tile as it will appear. Now I can click Submit, and you can see that Summer 2020 shows up down here at the bottom. And I also want to add a photo to this so it doesn't look plain and empty. I want to add something that will help my customers see that that's kind of special and uniquely created for them. So I left click on Add Photo, and then I can click on Browse to browse my computer to find an image that I'd like to use. Now we do give you some stock images from CounterSketch that you can choose from if you'd like to use one of our images, or you can go to your own pictures and maybe select a logo image and then click Open. It starts out by filling the image, so kind of stretching your image so that it will fill that space. But you can choose from a lot of different options. You can choose a uniform, or I really like this uniform to fill. So you could add an image perhaps with your logo and maybe something that's decorative or indicative of your brand. From here, you can click Save. And what it does is it adds that image to the tile, and it's down here at the bottom right. Now we need to make room for this tile on our start screen, and we can go about that a couple of different ways. We can either delete an existing tile, and it'll come over here to the left of our screen, or we can shrink some of these other tiles to make room for our new tile. So if we want to do that, we can bring back this other one, and now we've added it in to make room. You can also rearrange these tiles by left clicking and dragging if you wanted to make your tile a little bit more prominent when your customer is viewing your start screen. And you can always delete any of these tiles that you don't feel are relevant. By removing a tile, you're not removing those styles from your library. You're just removing kind of the quick access that the tile allows. So feel free to jump in and kind of rearrange and play with this start screen layout as much as you want to really make it match what your customers are looking to purchase and something that's really reflective of your brand. So now I'm going to save these tiles. And you'll notice that again, we've now got access from our home screen to that curated collection that we set up. If I left click on this tile, you'll notice that it takes me to those styles that we selected. And it also shows Summer 2020, which is the name that I gave that collection. So that's how you would create a curated collection to, again, help to emphasize to our customer that we're kind of aware of the jewelry trends in our area. And so when they come in and maybe they're looking for something like this, we can quickly click on that tile and access those styles without having to go through the process of searching. Are there any questions on curated collections before we move on to our Pinterest to price example? All right, I'm not seeing any questions come in, but if you guys do have questions, again, feel free to submit them and Allie or I will respond as we're working through here. So let's hop back over into PowerPoint for just a moment. And we talked about some of the new features. So we saw the new user interface and we looked at the curated collections. Now we're going to look at Pinterest to price. So here we have a Pinterest board, maybe some representative images from a Pinterest board that a customer brought in. Oh, that's a great question. So we did get a question from Lori. She asked, what is the current curated collection square on the homepage? So right now you'll notice down here at the bottom, we do have what we call a curated collection. This is the Ever and Ever bridal line. So if you own the Ever and Ever bridal collection, rather than curated collection, it will just have the Ever and Ever logo here. And then if you're working with our Ever and Ever prototype, and when you click on that, it will take you to all of the styles that are part of that collection. In my account, the way I have my information set up, I don't own the Ever and Ever prototype collection. So rather than showing it as that Ever and Ever logo, which wouldn't necessarily reference anything in my store if I don't own Ever and Ever, instead I get just this curated collection, which references the styles that are part of Ever and Ever. So it's really just a Stuller selected collection. And so if that isn't relevant to you or doesn't have meaning for your store, you can always remove that tile and make room for other things that you want to add in. But great question, Lori, thank you. Is anybody having trouble with their audio? It looks like we might be having some folks that have trouble with audio. What I would do, definitely check and make sure that you're connected. Make sure also that you've got the right audio port selected. I know that was something that we had trouble with when we were setting up. So make sure that your speakers are selected correctly. And you can also do an audio check within the software or within GoToWebinar to make sure. And I think there's even a call-in number, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Allie, could you look into that and see if there might be a phone number that we could share with those folks just in case they're not able to get audio through their computers? All right, so like I said, we're gonna hop over into PowerPoint for just a second and imagine that our customers have come in and they say they're like something in this vein. So maybe a combination of all of these, or they'd like to take a look at what some of these might look like. This one at the top is prong set. It's a kind of a traditional cathedral, but it has these halos with diamond accents that are facing outward. The other one is more, again, of kind of a traditional solitaire, but without those accent diamonds. But instead it has this nice ring of gold kind of around the outside that has a little bit of texture, and it's also prong set. So these guys are somewhat similar, but there's a little bit of a difference there. And then this third option that they've brought in is, again, gonna have that cathedral look to it, but instead of prong, it is bezel set. And again, we've got these diamond accents that are kind of facing out. They're a little bit difficult to see in this picture, but these diamond accents that are facing out around the base of our setting. So definitely if we're looking at this across the board, there is for sure, you know, this common theme of cathedrals and solitaires, and sometimes maybe a little bit of accent settings on the side. So based on these three images, we want to start working with our customer to listen to what they have to say about the design and then respond by making adjustments to the models that we have in CounterSketch. So to get us started, we're going to say that the customer has selected this top design and said that this is the one that they're most interested in. They like how you can see a little bit of the metal from that accent bar around the center stone and how that gives the illusion that the center stone is larger. And so we're going to start with this first design and see what we can create in CounterSketch. So once we're in CounterSketch, I'm going to start to go in and click on all ring designs. Oh, awesome. So for those of you who are having trouble with the audio, Allie got us the dial-in number as well as the access code. So if you aren't able to use your computer for audio, definitely call that number and you should be able to get access to the audio as well. All right, so we've started looking at all ring designs. And for the design element, something that all of those images had in common was that they were cathedral. So I'm going to left click on my cathedral, and that's going to limit my search results to only show me pieces that are cathedral. Also, they were either prong set or bezel set. So I'm going to select both of those center setting filter options and then left click on OK. And that will show me all of the models that have a cathedral that are also prong or bezel set for that center stone. So those are ways that we can, again, start to limit our search results and only look at the styles that are really relevant for the customer that we're working with. Also, if the customer knows what center stone shape they'd like to shop with, we can choose that at this time as well. And maybe for this, we're just going to say that we're going to go with a round center rather than the princess or the emerald cut that we saw in those other images. So again, everything is updating so that we're only looking at the models that are most relevant for what our customer wants to purchase. So we've got all cathedrals, all either prong or bezel set, and all that will accommodate a round center stone. So now that we've got our list limited down to around 218 designs still, we can start to look through these and find a model that we think that we'd like to use for the beginning of our design. You'll notice here this design is really similar to one that we saw before. So it has these accent diamonds on the side and it is bezel set, which is reminiscent of that second option that we saw. The biggest difference is that we do have this little kind of accented setting piece, and we also have diamonds down our shank, which we didn't have in that original photo. So let's open this design up and see if we can build it. So again, this is just one of the designs that the customer presented. Maybe if we're looking through, they say, hey, that looks a lot like that one that we were talking about. You can open it up and start to play around with the model and make the adjustments that you need to make to meet the customer's request. So you'll notice over here on the left that there's quite a few things that we can change about this model, but we're really only interested in making the change that are relevant for what the customer has requested. For example, this ring has accent diamonds on the shank. If I look over here on the left, I have the ability to remove the accent gems that are on the shank of my design, and they go away. So now we're a lot closer to the look that the customer requested. The only thing that you'll notice is when we remove those diamonds, then we get this kind of textured look. And the original design was very clean. It didn't have a lot of contouring or detail to it. So we'll want to change our profile shape when our gems are off to something that's a little bit more smooth, not as much detail happening on there. And it could be, oh, I've got the wrong ones. I apologize. We're going to go to our advanced design stack, look at our shank, and now we can make adjustments to that profile. There we go. So we've taken that and made it much more clean. The only problem is we still have this little accent piece underneath that again was not part of our original design. So this is where we can come in and again identify that bridge element, and we're going to turn that piece off. So this is a way that we could build out one of the styles that the customer was interested in really quickly and easily using CounterSketch by just turning off some options and adjusting the profile of the shank. All right, let's hop back in because there was definitely 3 distinct designs that we were looking at. We've kind of built this one at the bottom. But maybe the customer is going back to this first design and saying, hey, this was really the one that was most eye-catching to me. That one looks good, but could we see what this one would look like as well with a round center stone? So let's hop back over into CounterSketch and look at all of our ring designs. You'll see that our search results have saved. So all of those filters that we initially applied are still showing. So we've got those there for us. And in addition to that, I want to have the ability to kind of take a solitaire and add that accent detail on the side that the customer's looking for. So I'm just going to click on one of these really nice traditional solitaires, maybe this one here, and we're going to add that accent detailing. If at this point I wanted to save that design so that we could come back to it and look at it later, I could definitely do that. I'm just going to start building this other design for you guys really quickly so we can make sure that we have enough time to cover everything. So here is our next design. Again, it's a really great traditional solitaire, but our customer is looking for something that has kind of a halo of diamonds facing out. They also know that they want to use a round stone in the center. So I'm just going to left click on round to update that. And in addition to that, we know that the customer is looking for a lab-grown diamond, and size is starting to become a question that we need to really get some more information on. So maybe it's time that we start providing some pricing to our customer about what this center lab-grown diamond is going to cost. We've got two ways that we can access the lab-grown diamond inventory. We could have either done it from our start screen. So if I left click on the home screen, I can go back and you can see that I can choose that lab-grown diamond. But because our customer came in with images, we've started with our mounting, and now the customer has reached the point where they're interested in seeing more about lab-grown diamonds. So to select the diamond at this phase, we're going to come to our design stack over here on the left, and I'm going to left click on the lab-grown diamond, and there's a little shopping cart in front of us that kind of indicates this is the shopper for our lab-grown diamonds. As we look at our lab-grown diamond options, you'll notice that we've got quite a few to choose from. If you're familiar at all in shopping for lab-grown diamonds on Stuller.com, this is the exact same experience. You'll notice here that you do have the ability to select different diamond shapes if your customer is interested in more than one shape. In our case, our customer has said that they're looking for a round. And now we can come in and just use these sliders that are built into the interface to select the size, the quality, the cut, and even a budget if that's something that we know and we want to kind of update based off of. So we've limited our size, and if we scroll further down, you can see that these are the diamonds that we currently have in stock that are lab grown. From here, I'd like to compare these two diamonds side by side. So to do that, I'm going to left click on this compare button just to the left of the diamond, and then I can click on the compare tab, and it's going to bring up those diamonds so that we can look at them side by side. As I hover over the various characteristics of the stone, it's going to show that characteristic highlighted in both boxes so that I can easily compare the information. It's also got these great images or videos of the diamonds so that I can see them from all different angles. My customer is actually interested in both of these stones. So we're going to left click on Add to Tray to add these diamonds to our stone tray so that we can use them in our design. I can confirm that the diamonds have been added to my stone tray by clicking on my stone tray, and it's going to show these diamonds. You'll notice that in the tray, we have our LG badge next to the diamond, which is a helpful reminder to the consumer that the diamond that they've selected is lab grown. So we did work with the Jeweler Vigilance Committee on a lot of the signage and verbiage that we use in CounterSketch to be sure that we're clearly communicating to the consumer that the stone that they've selected is lab grown. Now all I need to do is decide which diamond I'd like to start designing with first. I can left click on Assign, and it will assign the diamond that I select to the model that I currently have open on the screen. So what it's doing is it's updating the dimensions of the diamond. And in a moment, you'll also see a preview image of a thumbnail of that diamond in my materials options. So you can see now that my measurements for my stone are grayed out because these are the exact dimensions of the stone that the customer selected. And then again, over here on the right, you can see that we have a thumbnail image of that diamond so the customer remembers what stone was selected. So we've decided on a stone, or we've at least got two that we're considering. We've selected our mounting, but now we need to do some work to our mounting to add those accent diamonds on the side. To do this, I'm going to go into our Freehand parts menu. And to access Freehand, I'm just going to left click on this little plus sign at the bottom of the screen. And then I'm going to bring up my Freehand parts menu. You'll notice that my Freehand parts menu looks a lot like my start screen. We've got different categories of parts and pieces that we can add to our existing design to create unique pieces of jewelry. So I'm going to look under settings to find a couple of different setting options that I want to choose from. Now I don't necessarily need a round setting. I can put a square or whatever size I want. So I'm going to clear out that filter. And I'm actually going to look for something that's like a halo to go around the base of that piece. So I'm just going to apply my halo filter to quickly find that component. I've got quite a few that I can choose from, but I feel like this one is most similar to what I'm looking for. So I'll select that piece and then choose Start Designing to add that kind of collar of diamonds out onto my screen. Once the collar is added to the page, I'll want to make some minor modifications, such as changing the shape of it, and then I'll move it into position. Right now, you can see that it's more of a cushion cut shape. So I'll want to come over to my design stack on the left and left click on circle to update the shape of that piece. Now I can use my move, scale, and rotate handles to left click and drag this component into the position where I would like for it to be. If you look at it from above, the circle is still a little bit too large for what we were hoping to accomplish, even though now it's in the right position. So the next thing I'll want to do is decrease the inside width and the inside height until it comes in contact with my setting. I can rotate my ring on my screen so that it's easier for me to see this and make the adjustments. So I'm going to left click and drag this circle to the left to start to scale it down to the appropriate size for the stone that I've selected. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So we're just going to left click and drag this down to make it smaller. And I usually like to make sure that these dimensions are at least somewhat close and similar to each other. And now we can take a look and see how that design appears. You'll notice that on the left, we've got all kinds of options that we can change about this particular piece. So again, you'll want to make sure that you're always referencing your customer, kind of asking them, making sure that what they're seeing on the screen matches their vision for that finished piece of jewelry. So if we need to make changes to the overall look of this piece, if they want it to be maybe a little bit more square and boxy, we can do that. If they want it to be a little bit thinner and not be able to see quite as much gold around that piece, we can decrease the height and the width of the piece. So there's lots that we can change, but always in deference to our customer. So we always want to make sure that we're really working with them and that they feel truly like they're a part of the design process. So we've built two of those designs out. Is there any other questions about the two designs that we've built so far? And if not, then we'll move on and look at possibly building a third option. Another thing that we can do, so you'll notice that this design does have grooves on the side. We don't know for sure that the ring that the customer showed us had those. So if you'd like to remove those, again, you just go into your shank grooves option and we can take those away. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, but again, feel free to send them in and we'll be happy to get back to you when we have those come in. Let's move on and we will build that final design that the customer brought in. And we'll maybe even still use the same diamond that we've selected. So I am going to save this design by just left clicking on that save icon in the upper of my screen. I can also hide all of these arrows and dots if those are distracting for my customer by just left clicking on this blue circle, and those go away so the customer can see them more easily. And we'll move on to our last design option. So let's go back to those all ring designs and continue to look to see if we can find another design that might be close to what our customer is looking to purchase. So we've got quite a few here to choose from. You'll remember that that third option was prong set. So that's kind of one of the more defining characteristics of that style. And we also maybe are looking for something that has a metal ring around the top. So not necessarily diamonds, but kind of a metal halo around the top. And this style here seems like a good candidate. So I'm gonna left click on Start Designing to begin working with this model. So Milton did ask a question. He asked, where did we find the halo option? So again, just to kind of quickly walk through that, we went to our Freehand parts menu at the bottom. And then within this group on the page, we left clicked on settings. And then within the settings, you have design elements. So within design elements, we can decide if there's a particular aspect of the design that we'd like to call attention to. In this case, I selected halo from the design elements, and then it applied that halo filter to my freehand parts so that I could find it. And Allie mentioned something very similar to that in the response to the question as well. So just thought I'd show it to give you guys a little bit more information. So here's our stone. You'll notice that it actually pulled that lab-grown diamond that we were working with before into this design as well. We didn't have to do any manual changes to make that happen. If at any point we want to switch to the other diamond, we'll just left click on stone tray and then left click on assign to update to this other diamond that we've selected. I like this one, so I'm going to leave us where we are. The other thing that I want to change is that my original image did not have accent gems down the side, so I'm going to left click to remove those accent gems. Also, my metal halo that was around those pieces that we were looking at was much wider and it had a good bit of detail to it. So I'm going to left click to go to my advanced design options, and then I'm going to left click on my halo to see kind of what we've got here that we can make adjustments to. The first thing I mentioned was that I want to change my halo profile width. And this is where I can come in, make that adjustment, and then check with my customer to make sure that they're happy with the overall width that we've updated to. If they are happy with the width of that halo that we've created, then we can start talking about what type of contour they'd like to see in this halo that we have around our top. Right now, my halo options are pretty limited. So you can see there's one that's a little bit more pointed, one that's a little bit more round, but there's not a lot of texture that we can see. So to help with this, we can actually do a custom profile. So I'm going to select a profile that's closest to the one that I would like to kind of have for my design. And then I can left click on our little options menu here on the right. Now I'm going to choose Edit Current Profile, and it brings out kind of a line drawing that looks just like that profile that we selected. Now I can left click on these points in my profile and start to make some changes that are going to update kind of the texture of the top of that style. So you can see that as I'm making those adjustments, it's automatically updating on screen, and we're able to give our customer more of that textured profile look that they were wanting. Once I'm happy with those changes, I can close this box. And now my customer can see that finished design with the textured halo that we were looking for. So again, if we go back to our PowerPoint slide, that was for this final design here, kind of showing that update. Now these rings in our images really look like actual pieces of jewelry. Whereas in CounterSketch, our piece, while it's very nice, does look a little bit more like a claymation version of a ring, right? The diamonds aren't sparkling. We do need to update our material to be a 14 karat yellow gold rather than platinum, because that's what our customer's original image showed. And it would be nice if we could have something that looks more like a finished piece of jewelry. So what I'm going to do is take a render of this design. This will help my customer to better understand what that finished piece is going to look like. And it'll also help me build some trust with my customer, because it's easier for them to make a decision off of a piece that actually looks like jewelry. So we're going to just position our ring on our screen. And I'm going to come over here to my render options. Within this render options box, I can left click to toggle on a render preview, and it brings up these little gray bars on the side. Everything that's inside of those gray bars is going to show up in my render. So that's what our render preview does, is it gives us an idea of what that final render is going to look like, or at least what will be included in that render. In addition to being in this render options box, we also have our render resolution. So as I mentioned, one of the new features in CounterSketch is that we've added these preset Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest resolutions. So if you render in one of these, you will definitely have a render that is compatible with these different social media platforms. So it makes it a lot easier for you to kind of render out the piece, and you don't have to do any post-editing work. You've got everything kind of finished for you right there and ready to go. And as we click through these, you can see the different render resolutions result in different render preview options. So I'm going to close this box, and I'm going to zoom in and maybe do something a little bit more kind of artistic, so we can really see all the detail in there. I'm not going to get the whole ring. I really want to focus in on that area of the ring that we've worked so hard on to get that nice detailing in. So I know that everything in the gray area will not show up in my render. And then I'm just going to left click on the little camera in the upper right to create a render. So again, as we've worked through this, we've talked about some of the new features that are in CounterSketch, including our ability to create a render, see the render preview. We added a lab-grown diamond, and we had the ability to shop for that lab-grown diamond, showing retail pricing with our customer. And then CounterSketch automatically updated the dimensions of the stone and added it to our design as we were working. So again, these are all new features that we hope will really help as you're working with your customer in CounterSketch to ensure that you're providing a really wonderful experience that helps you to build those relationships. So here is our render as we've created it. If we want, we can go in and save this render, and then we can share it out with our customer later on. So we've got our render here. Now that we've designed our ring and we've created our render, if we want, we can go back to those render options and toggle that render preview off so that we're back to our full customization screen. And finally, perhaps at this point, the customer would like to know what the pricing is for the ring that we've worked to design. So now we can left click on Quick Estimate to get an estimate of what our finished price would be for this design. Quick Estimate also looks at your retail markups so that the pricing here is customer facing. And you can see that we have quite a few different metal options to choose from and quite a few different diamond material options to choose from. So depending on your customer's budget, you can see different pricing. Now, obviously, our design doesn't have any melee, so the pricing is pretty consistent across. And it doesn't include that center diamond because we've already determined that price. So everything that you see here is just essentially based on the metal weight for the piece. But again, the pricing is customer facing. So maybe if they had initially intended to choose a platinum piece, but perhaps their budget is a little bit more in the white gold range, then they can quickly see that. And rather than kind of haggling with you and going back and forth on pricing, they can just choose the option that best suits their budget. And again, this is an update as well as part of the user interface update. We added the ability to kind of highlight different rows. We also call out in greater detail kind of the fact that the large diamond is not included, but any melee diamonds, if they were present, would be included. And it's also based on today's metal market prices. So if the customer comes back, 3 weeks from now, the pricing for the piece may have varied slightly. All right. Any questions on anything that we've covered so far, including building out those 3 different designs in CounterSketch, the lab-grown diamonds that we looked at, some of the new interface pieces, the previews for renders, or the social media presets for renders to make it easier to render designs and then quickly get them onto your social media pages for sharing? All right. Well, let's hop back into PowerPoint and just take a few more minutes. So we talked about the fact that we do have the lab-grown shopper now in CounterSketch. And again, you can choose and filter based on any of these different diamond characteristics to select the stone that's right for your customer. In addition, we also have the ability to add lab-grown melee diamonds to the order. So once you go to the order page, you do have the ability to select lab-grown diamond melee so that your customer can have an entire lab-grown diamond piece. We took a look at the render previews as well as the render resolution options that we've added to the software. And again, those are for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Pinterest. And that is all of our information. So thank you guys so much for joining the webinar. As a reminder, CounterSketch is really intended to be a tool that helps you to connect with your customer by providing a custom design experience in your store. So if your customer is looking for a lab-grown diamond, if they need to see a render to feel more comfortable to proceed with putting down a deposit and moving forward with the purchase, if there are changes that they want to make to the design to make sure that it's exactly what they want to buy, then you can use CounterSketch to kind of help build that trust, remind them of commonalities that you have, and be sure that you're respecting the ideas that they bring to the table as a co-designer of their piece of jewelry. Again, thanks so much, guys, for joining us for the webinar. We are going to hang out for just a couple more minutes just to see if we have any questions. If you think of questions after the webinar or you need to get going, feel free to email questions to us at sales@gemvision.com. We're happy to share more information with you about CounterSketch or any of Gemvision's products. And again, we just want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the webinar today. We hope that the information we shared was helpful as you look to make a decision to see if CounterSketch might be a valuable tool to add to your store. Oh yeah, so Allison asked if we can, so I'm gonna go back and look at some of these. Can you show the metal market screen again? I will definitely do that. So we're going to come over here. Um, and Allison, if you want, I'll pick a different model, maybe that has more diamond melly in it, just so that you can get a better idea of everything that it's pricing and see a little bit more variety. I selected a really bad design to do a quick estimate on. So I'm gonna pull up a different design that has some melly in it that might give you a better idea of what you can expect from that quick estimate screen. So I'm just gonna left click on this in the lower right. It looks kind of like a calculator, and that's gonna bring up the quick estimate. Like I said, it takes a look at the margins that you put into the software. And so the pricing that you see in CounterSketch is always customer facing. I did have another question from Anthony. He asked if we could edit other profiles other than just the profile that we edited for the halo, and you definitely can. So most of the profiles in the CounterSketch design stack are editable. So that can be done for sure. So here we go. We've got all of our pricing. Like I said, you can see the price difference between, an I1 quality versus a VS quality. This design has almost a quarter, well, a little over a quarter of a carat of diamonds. So that's having a lot more impact on the overall pricing. And it's also maybe helpful in making the upsell. You can talk to the customer about, for a little less than $50, we could go to a VS quality versus an SI quality stone. And so sometimes that can be helpful as well. And that's why we give you the entire screen, or all the different options, all the different metals, all the different melee options, so your customer can see the option that's going to be best for them. Okay, so Nor did ask if there was any information about men's rings. We do have several men's rings in our collection. So if you look here, going back to our home screen, to find the men's collection, you'll just left click on men's and it's going to update. Right now, because we have this lab-grown diamond selected and it's round, it's limiting our men's designs to only show us those that will accommodate a round stone. So I'm going to unassign that stone and remove this filter so that we get the full men's collection. So I'm just going to click clear here, and this will show us. So currently we do have about 100, let's see, right around 100 men's designs in our collection. Obviously, you can design your own as well, so you can kind of create men's designs using freehand parts and shanks and things like that. But we have added quite a few men's designs this year. This is one that's, I think, really cool. It's nice and modern looking. So that's one that I know has been added recently. And I believe maybe this one here has also been added over the course of the past year. So we are adding men's designs to the library slowly, but we really kind of base what we add the library on what we're selling. So we try to have the most relevant designs in the collection for you. Okay, so it looks like Milton has a suggestion. He says he would like to be able to put 2 different designs on one page so the customer can compare the 2 rings, like I put the 2 diamonds together. So that's a great recommendation, Milton. I will definitely pass that on to our product manager and to our development team and let them know that that's something that would be helpful. I think today, as it sits, kind of the closest thing that you can do is go in and select 2 favorite designs and then choose to show favorites only. And then you can kind of increase the size of these images and show them side by side that way. But I understand you're saying you'd like to have them kind of on the customized screen so that you could rotate them around and view both designs simultaneously in that customization screen rather than in this generic view that we have here. So that's a wonderful recommendation. I will pass that on to our team. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for the webinar today. We really do appreciate you spending an hour with us today. We hope, again, that this was helpful information. And as always, if you have any questions about CounterSketch or any of our other products, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.